Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Stir River, playing as the forces of the Vampire Counts against the forces of the Tomb Kings, in what is going to be a bit of an undead slugfest. And for this match I wanted to try out a Lord I don't run all that often, and a Lord that kind of stands out amongst much of the Vampire Count Lord selection as a very weak lord, a lord that doesn't do very much, and that lord is the Master Necromancer. Now, that doesn't mean the fact that he's weak does not necessarily mean he's bad. He's just cheap, and all he does is cast spells. And I figured that if I bring this guy, I might be able to get a wider army, and I wanted to see if how much that could help me, how much of a difference that could make in my strategy. So, for his abilities, I did bring Master of the Dead. This allows me to replenish nearby units' HP as long as he's not in combat. Good old Curse of Undeath, of course, just so when I'm spamming spells, I'm healing all my troops on the field. Invocation of the Neck for the heals. Van Helsdan's Macabre to boost up either my front line or my cavalry contingent of Blood Knights. Raise Dead, of course, for zombie summons. This can really disrupt your opponent's line, especially against a faction like Tomb Kings. This can be very valuable. And finally, Wand of Jet to get extra winds of magic. Unfortunately, despite being a dedicated caster lord and having very little else going for him, this guy doesn't have Arcane Conduit, so that does kind of suck, but it is what it is, and hopefully Wand of Jet can kind of compensate. For combat stats, nothing impressive. This guy will roll over and die if you glare at him, but that's why I brought him on a horse so he can escape, though unfortunately the Barded Nightmare is kind of slow at 66 speed. Now for my front line, it is a motley crew, some skeleton spears to add some width, as well as just to soak up enemy fire, protect my 3 units of Graveguard here in the center, one of which is the Stearnsmen. These guys, ever since their slight rework, they went up in price and had some slight stat improvements. Ever since then, these guys have been absolute melee beasts, and they can really dumpster Tomb Guard, where before it was more of an even fight. These guys nowadays will crush Tomb Guard pretty hard. And I figured that 3 units of them, especially with the Stearnsmen as the anchor, should overrun any Tomb King front line or any normal Tomb King front line. Behind that, we do have some Skeleton Spears to provide us with some better stopping power, mass, and additional support. And finally, we have 4 units of Fellbats up in the skies, looking to disrupt enemy backlines. On the flanks, we do have 2 units of Blood Knights out here to provide anti-large as well as high-mass units. Excellent for shutting down most of the Tomb King backline because, well, most of the Tomb King backlines is large single entities or low model count monsters, whether Ushabti Great Bows, Bone Giants, units like that, and Blood Knights can really shine against them. Alongside them is the Dire Pack, great disruptive tool, also provides anti-large, and on the other end we have a single unit of Blood Knights looking to flank around. And Stir River does have this awkward valley sort of situation, so I decided to send my infantry right down the pipe while I sent my cavalry around the sides so they wouldn't get shot. Now for my opponent, he decided to go with a very wide build. He does have a unit of Carrion out here scouting, perhaps seeing just trying to figure out if I've got anything stealth back there. Front line composed entirely of Skelly Spears. These guys will not hold up at all once I'm able to get into melee, but, you know, they give you the width you need and allow my opponent to invest elsewhere. For his Lord, he does have Arkin the Black, standard choice. This guy, of course, does come in with Lore of Death. He is mounted on his chariot here. He's got Fate of Buna, which isn't the greatest against vampire counts, but it does counteract Wraith units rather effectively. It also can be used to deal with units like Blood Knights somewhat efficiently. Spirit Leech, also solid, helps you work down your opponent's lords or heroes. If your opponent brought Banshees, it can counteract that. And, of course, once again, even though it's not as good as it is against normal cavalry, it can still do a fine job against Blood Knights. Life Leeching, of course, gives them some more winds of magic. Two Blade of Arkin, the usual for Skelly Spam and Interdiction. Now, alongside him, there are 2 units of Skeleton Chariots. These guys are very potent against infantry. Got an armor buff fairly recently, back in December with the Shadow and the Blade, and that does make them very nasty against basically everything. Now with 80 armor, they're very hard for infantry to stop most of the time. There are 3 units of Skeleton Archers, including the Blessed Legion of Demonetization here. These guys can provide good support against squishier vampire count troops, especially things like Vargulfs, Terrorgeists, or Crypt Horrors, which you'll sometimes see. A whole bunch of Sepulchral Stalkers in the back, 3 units of them, including the Eyes of the Desert, which can provide some great anti-large support. They got bonus versus large, AP, and that beautiful ranged attack that does a lot of damage and is poisonous. And finally, Casket of Souls, which is granting my opponent extra winds of magic as well as additional, just bombarding my infantry. Now immediately my opponent is going to use chariots to just sally out, taking advantage of my Blood Knights being distracted on the flank to, well, run my infantry over. I try to interdict with bats, and the bats get run over as well. So things looking pretty crap here on the flank. Unfortunately, this committing here of the bats was a massive misplay on my part. I really should have just kept advancing, accepted the loss here, and not tried to stop this, but I did. So the skeleton chariots take almost no damage, have already run over an entire unit of skeletons, essentially. 2 units of fell bats are basically gone. And what do I have to show for it? Like 200 damage worth on my opponent's troops. These bats, though, are okay, and in the meantime, the Blood Knights are being very sneaky on the flanks. While over here, the Dire Wolves get the jump on the Sepulchral Stalkers. You might think that's pretty crazy, but this does disrupt their charge defense. It also... These guys are also not large, so they are going to be soaking hits pretty effectively against the anti-large dedicated Sepulchral Stalkers, and now the Blood Knights are going to charge in on top of them and just demolish these Sepulchral Stalkers on the charge. These guys really cannot hold up, as the second of unit Blood Knights just ignores them and swings around the flank. Fate of Buna here going down on my Blood Knights. As in the back line, we see that brutal massacre being committed, an absolute atrocity being committed by these skeleton chariots, who are annihilating my Sternsmen, running over my Graveguard, just giving me an all-around bad time. That said, bats are going to get in on my opponent's backline, can start disrupting those archers. While over here, these Blood Knights are going to be able to engage and crush the Chikarian, though this is not ideal. Those Sepulchral Stalkers will get some good damage. Over here in the meantime, we are going to see a beautiful Blood Knight charge as these guys just pile in against that Casket of Souls. That Tomb King DJ is not going to hold up at all as those Knights of Blood keep pile in. Of course, they don't give a crap about archers shooting into them. And actually, the archers here are armor sundering the Casket of Souls, so they're actually making the Blood Knight's job easier. So probably not my opponent's intent there, but it is what's happening. In the meantime, the good old bats are cutting down the skeleton archers. Over here, Blood Knights and Dire Pack slaughtering these skeleton archers. And so, all in all, this backline fight is very much going in my favor. My opponent's skeleton summon here kind of wasting away, doing nothing, not even helping shut down this backline harass. And we are able to remove some archers from play, as well as murdering the Casket of Souls. Over here, the Blood Knights will eventually win against the Carrion, though it will take a lot longer than expected, and it does mean these Sepulchral Stalkers get some massive value shooting them in the back. That said, the chariot play has been, well, to put it mildly, brutal. Ark in the Black here is now running roughshod over my skeletons. Obviously, none of our troops are going to rout. The zombies here are trying to disrupt, but look at these chariots. They've lost some damage by now, largely because of the Necromancer. But I haven't even gotten my infantry in the fight. The Graveguard aren't even fighting the skeletons. This is just an all-around mess. Now, Spirit Leech is going down to the Master Necromancer, whittling him down a good bit. But, yeah, this has not been good at all. I've just lost so much HP, so many troops to these very annoying chariots. That said, in the back line, Dire Pack is going to try to squeak away alongside the Blood Knights. And I allowed the bats to just stay in here, bogging down the Sepulchral Stalkers, bogging down the Blessed Legion. And we are going to get a beautiful pincer once again here. Sepulchral Stalkers are alone, isolated, taking advantage of our superior mobility. We're able to plow in 3 units of Blood Knights, 3 against 1, 5,100 gold, plus the Dire Packs, so really it's almost 6,000 gold worth, 5,750, diving in against those Sepulchral Stalkers. And this is just a massacre. In seconds, the Sepulchral Stalkers are going to go down. A lot of their damage is going to be wasted on the Dire Pack, which just soaks up those that charge defense and soaks up a lot of the anti-large attacks from these guys. Look at that, 14 kills, most of that probably against Dire Pack, maybe some from shooting the Blood Knights earlier, but absolutely not good value. Spears in the meantime bogging down these very annoying skeleton spears, skeleton warriors also soaking them up. Ushabti summon trying to pursue my lord, the Master Necromancer, running from dear life here, being Spirit Leeched, but he's able to hold up pretty well. Over here, Graveguard is winning. Finally, the skeleton chariots are disintegrating, so that is a win for us, or crumbling. They'll hopefully start disintegrating soon. But we are able to start slugging it out. The Graveguard finally reaches their goal, and now they will be able to start, well, paying off, actually doing the work. My opponent is pulling the skeleton chariots back, trying to help the backline, trying to deal with these skeleton spears. But in doing so, he is going to abandon this front line to its fate. It won't be able to hold up. Here in the back line, the bats, yes, the bats are going to get shut down eventually. I do try to get a little more damage on the Blessed Legion, but it's not going to be worth much. That said, in all this time, Blood Knights are going to rally. They're going to get a heal. Invocation of the Heck going down. I do consider charging into the skeleton spears. Kind of waffling here, looking for an opportunity. The Ushabti are almost gone. They're crumbling. We'll disintegrate very, very soon. The Dire Pack is in there as well, a peripheral force. Master Necromancer does need to move closer, in my opinion. Keeping him this far out is definitely not great. Not a great idea. Easy way to get sniped. But the Blood Knights are now going to start diving into this backline, crushing these archers. Most of my opponent's threat troops are gone. All he's got left is some skeleton spears, and then, well, this little core. There's the Sepulchral Stalkers, Harkin, and the archers. But I was feeling pretty confident at this point. Balance of power strength shift in my favor, despite that early infantry disaster. The Sternsmen are still around, as are these Graveguard. They still have a decent chunk of models, but I do make a bit of a miscalculation here. I send the Master Necromancer to try to help these spears, try to deal with these skeleton chariots, look to get a little bit of cheap damage. And as reward for my troubles, I'm going to get jumped here by a very angry Ark in the Black. And as I overcast an Invocation on Heck, thinking it's going to be a big brain play, I miscast, and the Master Necromancer is now very down and very low on HP. Vanhel's Dance Macabre going down, trying to keep him alive, but life is not looking good, and we are running for dear life. Blood Knights over here in the meantime with zombie support, crushing the Eyes of the Desert. Dire Pack, of course, also in there, doing devastating amounts of damage. 80 armor is good, but against Blood Knights and Dire Pack, it doesn't hold up that well. Now, Arkin, though, doing an insane job. He's got Strider, keep in mind. So, I cannot kite him, even with Vanhel's Dance Macabre. He's just too fast. He's got 84 speed with Strider. And, of course, like all the other Lord Chariots, he actually got an armor buff as well. He's up to 110 armor nowadays. So, it's very hard to try to stop him quickly. And so, we are just running for dear life. Dire Pack diving in under his wheels, trying to stop him. But in come the chariots. They're actually going to pin my lord in. I'm not able to escape despite my very best efforts. We're armor sundered, and this is going to be the last stand of the Master Necromancer. He tried to cheat death for oh so long, but ultimately the Pope of Undeath here is going to get his sort of final say, and the poor Necromancer does topple from his horse, just blood-soaked and very much dead. Now, there's going to be a bit of a skeleton summon here. Of course, with the leader dead, the Dire Pack immediately starts crumbling. There's just not much you can do about it. Spear Leech going down to the Blood Knights, but these guys are now up to over 30 models. They're going to lose those to Spear Leech, but whatever. And my opponent is now going to find himself in a not-so-great spot. Arkin is wavering on the edge of death. He's got a little over 1,000 HP, but unfortunately, the Sepulchral Stalkers are gone. We still have some summons on the field. We still have some Graveguard on the field. The Blood Knights are cleaning with the Archers. My opponent chooses to GG out. So, a very intense and close game that, well, Sami makes some pretty major misplays that honestly almost threw the match. And the most important, of course, was allowing those chariots to just get insane value. Actually, no, not almost. Over 300 kills. 309 to be exact. Just got insane value against my Sternsmen, against the Graveguard. Of course, against the Skeletons and the Bats as well, but the fact that they just got so much value against all my elite infantry was devastating. It almost cost me that entire match. Because if in that late game I had absolutely no infantry left, and it was just the Blood Knights, even a silly spear box with like Eyes of the Desert and Arkham camping on it would be very difficult for Blood Knights to crack, I think. It would not be as easy as I would hope or be hoping it would be. That said, Blood Knights performed excellently. 1 chevron gain here, 2 chevrons gain on both of these guys. They just ran shop on my opponent's backline, crushing those Sepulchral Stalkers. They're an excellent unit against Tomb Kings, really. Well, they're an excellent unit in general. But against Tomb Kings, they can just shut down all of their big stuff. And if you can isolate the Tomb Kings monsters, they'll even deal with the single entities very, very well. The Bats, I think, did pretty well, but were misused. No two ways about it. Dire Pack, of course, did an excellent job just soaking up or disrupting enemy charge defense, soaking up damage that would have otherwise gone into my Blood Knights, and because of that, these guys just netted massive value for themselves. Even though it was only 41 kills, chances are a lot of those were very high value kills against Sepulchral Stalkers. The Master Necromancer, though, I'm not sure I found him that useful. The fact that you're on a Barded Warhorse, he doesn't get much armor. It's only 45 armor out of it, and it makes you super slow. You got 66 speed, which is kind of crap. And he can't really defend himself. And that's obviously what you're expecting, bring this guy into the field. But the thing is, to defend him, I could bring a Master Necromancer on a Hellsteed. The problem is that if I do that, I am at that point paying a lot more for him than I would like. And I'm not really getting that much of a cheapness benefit. In comparison, you can get someone like Manfred relatively cheap, or a Bloodline Lord, relatively cheap on a horse, and they can take care of themselves. I think in hindsight, I probably wouldn't run the Master Necromancer here. There might be other matchups where he shines better. I simply wanted to give him a go, see how he'd perform. But I think that ultimately, being so very squishy, especially at the end there, you saw how he had the Benny Hill from Arkin, and it was really kind of pathetic. If I had like Manfred, even Manfred, who's not the greatest duelist, much less a Blood Dragon Lord or something, I would not have to Benny Hill from stupid Arkan. And to achieve that, it wouldn't be too difficult. Like, you could cut 2 Skeleton Warriors or something, downgrade the Sternsmen to normal Graveguard. At that point, you're still probably going to win the frontline fight. And now you can have a much more competitive Lord's Choice from a combat perspective. Obviously, horse-mounted, so he's not going to be getting massive dives or breaths or anything like that. But much more sturdier and survivable. So, in hindsight, probably not the best choice, but it was fun to try. For my opponent's build, I think he had an excellent play there. I kind of underestimated his audacity, and so the Chariots got massive value. But I think he did a poor job of defending his backline and synergizing his backline defense. Each of these troops, or almost every one of these troops, ended up getting torn apart alone with no support. Like, the one unit of Sepulchral Stalkers went down to Direpack and Blood Knights, got no skeleton support in time, didn't get a summon support in time. The Casket of Souls didn't get any support, or at least not in a timely manner. Neither did the other unit of Sepulchral Stalkers. They got gangbanged by 3 units of Blood Knights. And so a lot of these, besides the Skeleton Chariots, a lot of these Tomb King units ended up dying horrible, painful deaths, isolated from the rest of their forces. And I think that's a bit of a misplay. I think my opponent should have tried to keep his troops a little closer together, try to support them better. If all these Sepulchral Stalkers were fighting closer together, or if, for example, if you flexed 2 of the Sepulchral Stalkers plus like a spear unit to block up my Blood Knights on the one that came down and initially sniped the Sepulchral Stalkers and then the Casket of Souls, I think he would have been in a much better spot. He could have bogged me down much more effectively, protected his archers that way, that sort of thing. But instead, it was just a sort of snowball effect. Carrion impressively getting 2 kills, and I think both of those were against Blood Knights, which is pretty nuts. but that is pretty cool. Yeah, that's basically it. Definitely well played here to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining and fun, as usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments, critiques down below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. Do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.